All right, I'm ready. Are you?
Okay.
Remember, there's no mistakes. This is like art class. Anything's good. Just whatever comes out, comes out. Okay. Welcome back to the 1090 podcast. I'm in Canada with Anna. That was a tongue twister right there. And have you been in Canada your whole life?
I wasn't born here, but I've been here most of my life, yeah.
So I've probably been in Canada for...
Few hours.
Have probably seen 0.1% of it.
Welcome
so
to
take
Canada.
it for what it's worth. But I love it. It is awesome. I love the diversity.
Yeah, very diverse here.
I stopped in a coffee shop this morning in another store, and just the different languages that you're hearing, the different accents that you're hearing.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
It's a melting pot, Toronto.
Truly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I love that. The weather, it's just November, so I don't know how much that's Canada's fault. That's just kind of on me. Like
this is Canadian weather.
Yeah.
And this is actually pretty good for November. So.
And, I actually don't mind a little gray, cloudy depression. I kind of get into it. Like
Some days, yeah.
Kind of like it. What else? Everyone dresses really nice here.
Really?
Like, I look like a homeless person.
Well, you're in... no, you don't. You are in, like, Toronto, the big cities. So right now, it's like everyone's going to work, so they're probably, like, dressed to
everyone's dressed nice. Yeah. I love all the foot traffic.
Yeah.
Lots of people, lots of good energy.
Yeah.
But, yeah, people are dressed. I'm like, man, I look bad. Like,
no, you don't.
I usually, don't look good.
No, you look fine.
It's bad.
No, you're blending right in.
All right, good. That's kind of how Europe was. Everyone's dressed really nice. Mm-hmm. Everyone's walking.
Yeah, a lot of walking.
Because everyone's walking, when you get thirsty, they ask for water. So there's no one overweight there.
No.
Like America, everyone's just like, what are we doing?
We did say the same thing when we were in Europe. We're like, because there's so many hills, the steep like roads and stuff.
You legit need water.
Yeah.
You're not like...
Even the older people, like... A lot of older people I find here sit down and don't move a lot. And then in Europe, they're just bringing bags of groceries up these steep hills.
Working.
And
So there you go. There's my Canada trip. Oh, and marijuana is everywhere. And that's great.
It's like Amsterdam.
It kind of reminded me of Amsterdam a little bit. I'm like, this is how the world should be. Yeah, this is great.
So in Utah, it's not.
Oh, my goodness. No.
Yeah.
No. That's the devil's lettuce.
But it was like that for a while here. But, it's been legal for a few years now.
It's so weird because as I was walking today past all these marijuana shops, not to make this a marijuana thing all of a sudden, but and there's kids going to school, elementary kids, middle school kids. They're walking by these shops. And I think it's so funny because obviously on the 1090 podcast, I'm a big believer in talking about things. Like if you talk about it, you have more control over it.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I don't know any of the statistics, but I bet because it's legal and these kids are walking by these shops and people talk about it and they smell it, they probably have weirdly a less desire or chance to do it.
Because it's not a big thing?
Yes, versus... Don't do it ever. Yeah. Don't even hang out with. Don't smell it. Don't even. And now it's just, you're going to have problems. People are going to look at it and be curious.
Yeah, I come from a European background, and I found it was the same way growing up. Like sometimes our parents would give us like wine, like for dinner. Like you'd have like a glass of wine if we were celebrating something, and you were like 11 years old, just like a little thing of wine, not like a whole glass. And I remember going to school, and it was like when people became like, when, you're like a teenager and people are like, oh, there's some liquor here and stuff like that. And I'd be like, so what? I don't understand. Like, why do people want to get drunk? I never understood why people wanted to get drunk because I was like, I've always had like sips of wine. It was never a big deal. So I find, like maybe it's the same thing.
Yeah. I just think that's weird how we do that in life. Like I was a high school teacher. I was a high school psychology teacher. Mm-hmm. Psychology, this is a study of human behavior. And they're like, you can't talk about sex and you can't talk about religion.
Yeah.
Like, those are the two main things that drive human... Like, what are we talking about?
Exactly.
We might as well make it a biology class.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, kind of went down the hole there, but that's fine. Okay, I'm going to break everyone's heart with the obituary of Basil, and then music will come in and we'll dive into it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. I can't read very good, and I don't mean any disrespect, so if I say something wrong, please just correct me.
Sounds good. You don't have to even read out all the names, because there's a lot of nephews and nieces.
Yeah, but he was Uncle Basil.
Yeah, he was.
In loving memory, Mr. Basil Dawkins. 1976 to 2023. Basil Andrew Dawkins passed away on July 17th, 2023 at the age of 47 of an unexpected heart attack. Even though a failing physical heart took him away from his world, his figurative, loving heart left behind a beacon of light for all who had the privilege of knowing and loving him. Basil is survived by his wife, Anna, his two bonus children, Cheyenne and Rajon. Thank you. His beloved mother, Gloria, along with his siblings, Karen, Kevin, and Wayne. His brother-in-law, Dylan, Paulo, Carlos, and Michael. His sister-in-law, Jackie, Nina, and Teresa. His favorite role was being Uncle Basil to his nephews and nieces. He also cherished the relationship he developed with his cousins living internationally in the Canada, UK, Jamaica, and the United States. Dang, so he lived... What was his favorite, you think? Canada, UK, Jamaica, or the US?
Oh, he loved Jamaica.
That sounds like the right answer to me. Like, yeah, I could do some Jamaica. He was a loyal friend to many and shared a real brotherhood with his friends. Basil is predeceased by his father, Boise, and his twin brother, Brian. Basil's generous spirit, loving heart, great sense of humor, connected to an infectious laugh, and his dedication to living a joyful life will be missed and treasured forever. And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes. Sorry, we're just ending with this scripture here. This is Revelation 21:4. And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. Who wrote that?
I did.
Beautifully done. I love, even though a failing physical heart took him away from this world, his figurative loving heart left behind a beacon of light for all who all had the privilege of knowing and loving him. I love that because, yeah, in a way, I mean, he had a heart attack, but it was his heart that...
It was, if you knew Basil, he had the biggest heart. People loved him because of his heart, and even sometimes him, like, he drive me crazy, but that heart of yours is gold. So, yeah.
Thanks for coming on. Should be a good episode today. Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% what you're going to do about it. Welcome back to the 1090 podcast. Anna, where should we start?
Wherever you like.
Well, how'd you meet Basil?
Basil and I actually worked together. We were co-workers. We were both in other relationships at the time when we met. And we connected years later. We would sometimes just message each other, like over Facebook or so. And then years later, it was Christmas Eve, and I was going to go get a gift for my brother. And I finished getting the gift. I went home. It's Christmas Eve. Everyone's crazy, last minute gifts. And I was trying to leave the parking spot, and someone was parked behind me. And I thought, well, I understand that you want this parking spot, but you need to move because the car was literally just sideways. And so I beeped, and I beeped the horn, and they still didn't move. So I remember getting agitated and going, what is wrong with this person? Why are they not getting out? So I got out of the car to say, you need to move the car. And he it was Basil. He had seen me go into the store, followed me to my car, and as soon as I went to go be like, what was wrong with you? And he said, Anna? And he always used to call me, like, we had pet names for each other, even though we like were in separate relationships and things. And he'd be like, Anna Christina, my Anna Christina. And I was just like, Basil? So that's how we reconnected. Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
And then, like, you guys got married, or like, where'd you go from there? Or?
So we started dating, and a couple years, I think like a couple years later, we got married. And I don't know. We got married. We traveled a lot. We shared a passion for traveling, so we would travel a lot. It was one of the things that connected us to each other. I have 2 kids. He basically became like moved in, became a father figure to both my kids, and not in any way like when someone comes into your house and, you know, my kids gave him such a hard time. They were, you know, basically like, oh, we don't want no guy coming in.
How old are your kids?
Oh, I can't remember exactly, but my daughter at the time, she was already a teenager, probably
that's a tough age for
it was
those
a tough
kids.
age for it. And then my son was younger, a little younger. I think he was like maybe 11 or so. But they were both like, you know, and so they tried so hard to give him a hard time. And I even warned him, and I was like, I don't know, I'm nervous.
Yeah, that's tough.
And he wore them down with his kindness. Like it was just his kindness, basically, where even if they wanted to not like him, like they just couldn't. Like he just wore them down.
Persistent
with his
kindness.
Yes.
Would do a lot.
And it was just who he was. It was effortless almost for him. And so, yeah.
What's your relationship with grief been like before he had his heart attack?
I was a stranger to grief. Other than my grandmother passing away, and maybe some acquaintances passed away, but I kind of tried to stay almost clear of grief. Like I didn't like funerals. I just was kind of like, I didn't have a relationship with grief.
No, I was very much the same way before my family in the car accident. So I thought I'd ask because a heart attack, it came out of nowhere, it sounds like. I mean, sounds like a healthy guy. Can we get into the day of his heart attack and what that was like for you? Your world going from everything's great and then all of a sudden it's blown up.
Yeah, so his younger brother, his twin brother actually went into cardiac arrest years prior to Basil passing away. Basil and his brother were going to play basketball, and they went to go play basketball. They were having a good time, and then his brother went into cardiac arrest, and it was Basil who was there at the time and watched his brother pass away from this.
How old were they when this happened?
24 when this happened.
His brother was 24.
24 years old. And he, at the time, he like when he would talk about it, like he never liked talking about it because it was always very hard. But when he would talk about it, he would say, I didn't know CPR. I didn't know CPR, so I couldn't save my brother. And so it was something that really bothered him.
So he felt guilty about his brother's death.
He had he never really, he had some guilt, but he never really communicated it. He really didn't even like to talk about it, but
I don't think anyone likes to talk about guilt.
No.
He likes to talk about shame and guilt.
Right, exactly. So, he felt bad that he didn't know CPR. And after his brother passed away, at some point when he worked, he went and he had to learn CPR. And it was one of those things that that basically, like, he made it, like, he wanted to know CPR at that, like, after that had happened, because even one time we were in Aruba and an older gentleman was on the floor, and now, again, I've never experienced this, and he basically just jumped into action, and he was like clear his space, like, give him room to, like, breathe. And he just ran onto the beach while people are just panicking. He ran onto a beach and he was like, is there a nurse? Is there a doctor? Is there a nurse? He went, grabbed a nurse, and then she helped him. And while they were doing CPR, he said, let's get out of here. And I was like, but don't you want to think? He goes, no, I don't want to be anywhere near here. He's like, I don't want to be this. And that's when I realized, like, moments like that where you see the trauma, like, that he's already lived through this once. For me, it just seemed like I'm a bystander, but for him, it was, like, very personal. So yeah, he had that, which changed his world forever. It was his twin brother, so that changed his world forever.
So young, 24.
So young, yeah. And it just, again, out of left field. So even sometimes we would go out to go eat, or we would go out somewhere, and he would always look around and be like, there's a defibrillator, there's the ED.
You just could see it everything.
Because he was so aware afterwards, like, if something had happened, that where it is. Because when his brother had passed away, there wasn't defibrillators back in those days, really, like, anywhere. So he was always, like, very aware, which I would always find a little bit, like, odd, but he was always aware of where there were defibrillators and stuff like that. So the day he passed, I'll go back and just give you, the night before we were at home. Something in me said, take the day off and don't go to work, spend some time with him. And I took the day off, spent time with him.
That's pretty rare for you to do.
Yeah. Like, to take a day off, like, just for that was weird. But something in my soul was just, like, take the day off and I'd been working a lot. And so I just thought, like, just take the day off to maybe I needed some, like, time, whatever. Clearly I know why now. And then we had spent some time together, but the evening just before I was going to go to bed, because I was working the next morning, and he was meeting up with a friend to get something. And I remember him coming down the stairs, and when he came down the stairs, there was, like, this shortness of breath. And I was watching TV, and I remember being acutely aware that's weird. Why is he have that shortness of breath? Like, we have a lot of stairs, but it just seemed weird to me. And I remember that moment, like, thinking that. But, you put it out of your mind. You basically think, like, nothing of it. It's a regular day. He's in good health. Everything's fine. Next morning I go to work. He was laying in the bed. I went to work. My son said he had saw him in the morning. He was grabbing something to eat quickly, and then he was going to go run some errands. I had worked later that day than normally. I remember coming home from work, and he had messaged me and said that, or when I got home, he said that he would be home soon. So I was expecting him to be home soon. He said a friend of his was coming by, and they were going to, grill some steaks, and his friend was there for a while. Anyway, so that's what I was expecting, is they would be home soon. That was, I can't remember the exact time, but so I was expecting him to come home. I waited at the house. he didn't come home. So then I thought, well, let me go run a few errands and then I'll come back and like come back quickly. So I had left the house. I went into my car and I got a phone call. So I was talking to a friend. And then, well, after the phone call, I just started text messaging someone. And then my phone rang. My phone rang and they said, "Is this Anna Dawkins?" I said, "Yes, it is." They said, "Are you Basil Dawkins' wife?" I said, "Yes, I am." Right away, I just remember feeling weird about how that call started.
Like, this isn't going to be good.
Yeah, and it came from a private number, and normally I don't even answer private numbers. I just think it's a telemarketer or something.
When the doctor called me about my family, same thing. Like, I don't usually answer these, but I answered it.
Yeah, so I answered the call, and then just the way the full name, I just thought was odd. So I thought, again, telemarketer or something. And then they said, there's been an accident. And I was like, an accident? Like, what do you mean? And then he was out with his motorcycle. So then it still didn't really register. And I just thought, it's like you just process you're just trying to process because it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, an accident. And they were saying, yes, there was an accident and with Basil Dawkins. And so then immediately I said, where is he? I said, where is he? Like, what hospital? I'll be there. Like, just tell me what hospital. And they said, no, he didn't make it. And I said, what do you mean he didn't make it? And they said he didn't make it. And it just...
Like, he didn't make it to the hospital. He didn't make... Like, yeah. Like, what does
just...
that mean?
Then it's almost like I went blank. And I didn't understand, like, what they were saying. So... Yeah, it's just... Like, I still almost don't, like, remember exactly how it went. But... I just remember at some point saying, like, who's calling? Who is this? Who's calling? And they said it was the paramedics. And I just said, is this a sick joke? And they said, no, this is not. And I asked where he was. They told me where he was, which was 2 minutes from the house. So, I said, well, I'm coming over there. And I remember hanging up the phone and then just sitting in my car, not being able to process what was just said. And at some point I remember just thinking, well, these are the calls. These are the calls that you see when you watch TV or you're watching a movie and you see, like, someone gets a call that just changes your world forever. And I'm like, you're in the movie. You're in the movie. You just got that call. And then I just remember, like, screaming, just like a sound that, like, I just never... I don't know, just a weird sound, but I couldn't drive, so it's 2 minutes from the house, but I thought, I can't drive. I was in shock. I could barely move, and I thought, let me go inside. Let me go get my son and for him to take me there. So I didn't want to tell him until I knew, because a part of me was just, you're in denial. So you think, well, don't say anything because you don't want him to know this right now. Like, we'll get there and we'll see what's happened. I almost felt like I needed to see it before I could believe what was being said to me. I told my son that something's happened to Basil and we need to go quickly. And he just kept asking, like, well, why don't you drive? Because it's 2 minutes from the house. So he's like, well, why don't you drive? And I'm like, I need you to drive me. And he was just like, again. And then I was like, I just got to. So then I told him about the call. So he took me. And he said the same thing. He was like, Mom, it's not true. It's not true. So you think, okay, well, I'm not the only one who thinks it. He thinks it too. It's not true. And we're driving. And because it's so close, I think to myself, if I go there and I see an ambulance, then I know it's true. So this happened while he was at a restaurant. So my son goes to turn into the turning lane. When he goes into the turning lane, I see the ambulance. So now I know it must be true. I don't know. I just jumped out of the car and I jumped into the ambulance. And I just saw his body. I just saw his body there. And he just looked like he was asleep. Like, and then, you're just, I don't know, it's an out-of-body experience. You feel like you're looking at yourself grieving over the person you love, and you just can't fathom what happened. He looked at peace. He did have like 2 tears in his eyes that haunt me. I'm always like, was that the after effect? Because your body, when it passes, was it because you felt pain? Was it because you knew you were dying? Yeah, so I'm grateful that I got that call though when I did, because I'm so grateful that I didn't see him in a morgue. It would have been cold where I saw him. His body was still warm. He was like, it had just happened. So I literally felt his body go from being warm to starting to go cold. And yeah.
What was the kid doing on the scene? What do you got there?
Sorry?
Did you bring your kid with you?
My son is like he's in his 20s, so I don't even remember. At some point I know he was just rubbing my back and just like his hand was on my shoulder. He, at some point he was out of the ambulance just talking to see what had happened. There was someone else, one of Basil's friends, who he was supposed to meet that day. He arrived first at the scene because he kept calling Basil's phone. And because he kept calling the phone, that's when they answered and said that there was an accident. So he was already there. So then my son was also just talking to him about, I don't know. But I spent, like, I can't remember, just like time is just thing, but it felt like I spent a long time with him in that ambulance, which I'm grateful for. But I have no concept of time during that point. I think back now, like, I don't know how they got me to leave the ambulance, like leave without him. Like, seems weird to me that, like, how I don't remember the ambulance leaving with him. I don't remember. I just don't know how. I just don't remember that part. His mother and brother did come also at some point. They were called by Basil's friend, called them. So they also came to see him. Yeah, just, I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but I remember he got me onto Game of Thrones. And there's a line from Game of Thrones where at some point, Ariana Stark, and she's talking to the gods of death or so, and they say, there's a line that says, "What do you say to the gods of death?" And she says, "Not today." And I had gotten into a really bad car accident once, and my life flashed before me, and so I remember telling him, like, during that time, and just thinking, I remember in that moment when I was in the car, we were thinking, this is it. Tomorrow they plan my funeral. This is it. And somehow, by the grace of God, there was a truck I saw coming at me, and then all of a sudden, I just remember closing my eyes and preparing for impact, and then I felt nothing. And I thought, something just said, open your eyes and get off the road. And off I went, which the highway was full of cars, and all of a sudden it was just like there were no cars on the highway, and I just got off the things. But so he would say when that happened to me, and he would say, "What do you say to the God of death?" And I would say, "Not today, not today." And so when he passed, I remember just thinking to myself, like, not today, God, not today. But it was that day.
From the funeral, like going through that, I mean, he just died in the ambulance, going through this funeral, you're in like this shock, grief, darkness. Do you remember what was helpful for you? What people did for you or said to you that was helpful versus not helpful at this moment in time? Or is it just complete shock and you don't remember?
Like, I was in so much shock. I remember almost like people would be talking around me, trying to comfort me, and it felt like I was hearing Charlie Brown speaking, or like, want, 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 want. Like, I couldn't, it almost felt like background noise. Like, I couldn't, just for days it was like that. But his family, because they had been through this before with his brother, his family brought me a lot of comfort. Just seeing how they dealt with it, just, you know, they're just such, I don't know, they're resilient. They just, you know, they sprung into action, and just the way they were able to just move through it, just somehow that pulled me out, because I was like, this is what he would do. Like, and then I started imagining, this is how Basil felt when his brother died. This is what, because a lot of times he would tell me certain things, and I'm like, this is what he was talking about. Oh, I get it now. Oh, I understand now why you would say certain things. Even he always had a line, you know, I remember our last trip we had purchased a place in Dominican, and we were planning on retiring there and stuff, but our last trip to Dominican, and our flight was late we had a bunch of stuff because we were bringing TVs down, a bunch of things with us. He had arranged for someone to pick us up at the airport, and I was like, oh, he wasn't very reliable, this person. So I was thinking, well, let's just rent a car. And he thought, no, let's have him pick us up. And I remember being like, okay, fine. Well, he'll pick us up, hopefully. As soon as we land at the airport, he gets a message saying from that guy that he's not going to be able to make it to pick us up. So now we have all this stuff with us, and we're like, what do we do? So I thought, let's rent a car. But he had met someone that rents cars down there privately. So he said he'll contact him. It was taking a long time. And it was his birthday that day as well. It was his birthday. And so I was trying to, it's his birthday, let's have good energy. But after waiting, we were at the airport for 2 hours, and I felt like almost like I told you he wasn't going to be reliable. And I wasn't in a good space. And so I was just like agitated, and I was just like funky, and I was just like, yeah. And I remember him coming over. There's a cafe there, and he went and got us 2 beers, and he was like, cheers. He's like, what you're complaining about, these are champagne problems, Anna. He's like, these are champagne problems. We just flew first class here. We're in beautiful weather. We have a place here. He's like, people are back home. It's cold, and this is nothing. So what? This is nothing. And he was right. And then
I love that story.
He was right. And it was just like, there's bigger things in life. And he was always like that. I would little things, and he would be like, this is nothing. What are you getting worked up over this about? And actually remember that day, and we get back to our home in Dominican there in the condo there, and I'm putting some stuff away, and I'm still trying to like work off I was hot, bothered, whatever. I was just trying to work that all off, and I remember going through my head and telling him, I'm not mad at you. I'm just mad at the situation. Like, I'm not mad at you. So so he could kind of sense my vibe. So he even said, are we going to go celebrate, or what are we doing? And I said, of course we're going to celebrate your life. Of course we are. So we went out, just before we went out. So I said yes. And then I was getting myself ready, and I was still trying to just like bring back my attitude and just be like,
get the energy.
Yeah. Feel some energy. And I was just like, Anna, get it together. This has nothing to do with him. Like, let it go. And I remember something came to me. This has never happened to me before. But something said, what if it's his last birthday? What if this is his last birthday? And this is how it goes down. And I remember getting chills in my body thinking, why would you think that? Why would that even cross my mind? And so then I remember shaking it off, and just, again, you think nothing of it, and you just go about your day. And then we had a good time. And so what got me through those early days was just hearing like his voice more than anyone else's. I could hear him. Like he was always the calm to my storm. He was, when I was out of sorts, he would just be able to talk me down. And I just remember so many times when I was like laying in bed and couldn't get up, and I'd hear him going, Boo, you got to get out there and live. You got to get out there and live. Don't you see? Don't you see what happened? Life is short. Get out there and live. And yeah, so I don't know. I think more than anything, it was almost like sometimes I think like maybe he was preparing me all along for death, because stuff he would say so many times over this year, I've thought that's what he was trying to tell me. That's what he was trying to show me. He had been through it, and so his perspective changed on life. Now your perspective has changed, and so now, when I hear people complain about some things and stuff, and it just triggers me, because it's just like someone the other day was complaining about their husband snoring, and, like, oh, my husband, he kept me up and he was snoring. And I'm like, man, what a blessing.
I would love it.
I would do
Basil was snoring. Yeah.
For him to be snoring in the bed next to me. Like, it just literally just puts life in perspective, that it's just so short, and we get caught up in these whirlwinds of what we think life should be. And if it doesn't go according to plan, then we get all bent out of shape. And it's like, life is going to life. And we have no control over anything. So just be kind. I don't know. I just definitely see life a lot differently now.
Just like watching you talk, and which I'm guessing you don't do it a lot, at least not like this, in kind of a therapeutic atmosphere, maybe. Yeah. And so you can tell, like, deep breaths, and it's a struggle for you. But within it, as you keep talking, and like you talked about you see him and the tears in his eyes and the hardest parts of it. But then as you keep talking, you start to smile. And let me tell you the story about him. And I just think that is representative of grief and how it works. And the metaphor of like the buffalo and the cows, like cows run away from the storm, buffalo lean into it. This is exactly what we're talking about. And this is what I've learned through podcasting is because the first year when I lost my family, couldn't look at pictures of them, couldn't talk about them. It hurt so much. It just made it worse. So I'm just going to drink and numb it. And then it was like, I am running from the pain. But and then I started to realize, like, I'm running from them. Like, I can't remember our life together. I can't remember what we had. And then when I talked about the pain and the agony and all of it, and it hurt so bad, it was like you. I was like watching you today. Eventually, the stories turned to a smile. I'm so grateful that I knew Courtney and got to have Riggins and chase Frankie around the house. And the more you go and talk about the pain, the more you get the good parts too. It's the classic metaphor of the buffalo. If you head into the storm, you're still going to get shit on. Like, the storm's still going to wreck you. You're not going to avoid the storm. Mm-hmm. But you get the good parts, and you talking today was just a great example of that. Of just, this is really hard, maybe even questioning it, like, why am I doing this? And then you like, but I remember him now, and you feel like he's still alive, and you're close to him still. If I were you, it seems like I would have thought it was a motorcycle accident or a vehicle accident, not a heart attack.
Yeah.
So how did you learn and figure out that, he died of a heart attack, not a motorcycle accident?
Again, I also thought it was a motorcycle accident. But then when they told me where he was, and I realized he's 2 minutes from home, so that would be weird. But I thought maybe it was during a turn or something like that. When I got there and I saw his motorcycle, and then I saw him, so clearly it wasn't a motorcycle accident. And just right away I knew. I just knew it was a heart attack. I just thought it was like his brother. It's just, after his brother had passed away, the family had all went and got their hearts checked. he went and got his heart checked, and when I asked him, like, what happened, and like, what did they tell you? And he said that it was a running joke with us, but he said they said I had an enlarged heart. And I was like, obviously you have an enlarged heart. Like, have you, like,
it's like the Grinch's heart grew 3 times that day.
I have felt your love. Of course you're like, you know, he loved big. Everything with him was just big. And so it was just like, of course you have an enlarged heart. It makes total sense. But it was nothing to, no, it wasn't a concern. He had an irregular heartbeat, they also said. So they just said he needed to monitor it. There was one point he had worked out in Alberta, out west in Canada. This is before we were married. One night he had called me and he said, and we had already spoke just a little bit before, so he called me again and he said, "Hey, just stay on the phone with me." He's like, I have these chest pains and I just need you to stay on the phone with me. And I thought, well, if you have chest pains, maybe you should call somebody there to, like, go get checked. Because I thought, well, I'm in Toronto. If something happens, I'm on the phone with you. I can't help you. Like, where he worked, it's this area, and so it's, like, hard to find. It's, like, a remote, like, kind of area. And so I was telling him, and I go, like, just call somebody there at least to, like, get out of your room, go into an open setting so that other people are around, and that if anything happens, it's like someone that you work with can help. And then he would be like, "No, just stay on the phone." And I insisted, kept telling him, like, "Oh, call somebody or something." And he said, "No, I don't want to do that because then I won't be able to go to work tomorrow." He worked in like, it's some of the stuff that they do are just dangerous. So they, you know, if he said that he had chest pains, they would tell him that no, he can't go to work. He had to go get tested and stuff. And he was more concerned about going to work.
Yeah, that's a guy.
So, yeah. So I stayed on the line with him. But before he was saying, he's like, "Why are you arguing with me? I'm calling you to stay on the line with me. I got chest pains and you're stressing me out." He was just like, "Just stay on the line with me." And I thought, in my head, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. If this was something was happening, this would make no sense. But then I was like, I realized that for him, even a lot of times, sometimes he would be like, he didn't want to die alone, almost. Like, he'd be like, just if your voice is there, like, it was almost like, you'll calm me down, I'll be fine. So in other times, like, certain things, he would call and just be like, just talk like this through. Like, if he was having a moment where, like, something was really bothering him, he would call me and be like, "Just want to hear your voice. Just talk about something." Because it would always just kind of soothe him. I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't know why I'm bringing this up. I don't know what you asked me. Brief brain.
That never happens to me. I'm always crystal clear and no, that happens to me every episode.
How did we get on this? I think you asked me a question, but I don't know. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I think I originally asked you about the heart attack thing, like you thought.
Oh, right. And so I don't know. I think in that moment, I was just like, if he's here, what else could it be? Like, his motorcycle and him are fine. And it just naturally, right away, even, I think I told them it was a heart attack. And I think they said cardiac arrest. I'm like, it was a heart attack. His brother died the same, like, way. And I think we did have an autopsy done just to be able to, if anything, help the family. Again, they went and got all their hearts checked again, just to see if it was something genetic, because his brother had passed. His dad had heart complications and passed due to heart complications. So, and then him. So we just wanted to make sure that if we did an autopsy, that if anyone else in the family could be helped. Yeah.
Yeah, just they're twin brothers. They both died of heart attacks. I just wanted to what your opinion of that is. Like, that's just, I don't know, that's something. That's just.
So they had, it's called, probably going to butcher the thing, but hydrotrophic cardiomyopathy.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot.
Which is a genetic condition that it's like a genetic mutation, and it causes your heart to thicken. So your heart could be larger, it could thicken, and it makes it harder for blood to pump through your heart. So a lot of times it goes undetected because unless you do a certain test, you can't really spot it. Like if he did blood work, his blood work probably would have been fine. So, when people were like, now I go back and I'm like, were there signs? The shortness of breath the night before was a sign. Like, that's a sign that, a heart attack is probably going to happen. He had complained about some inflammation in his arm, which they said, like, usually inflammation is also a sign to look out for. So he had been complaining about inflammation in his arm, but he had been helping his cousin doing some roofing. So we all just assumed it was because of the roofing, because of the position of your arm. Yeah. But it had lasted even after he hadn't done roofing for a couple months. He still felt the inflammation, but he just thought maybe, he had done something that was really uncomfortable. He would always say, I'm getting older, I'm starting to feel things. So, he didn't get it looked at. He kept saying he was going to the doctor, but I guess he kept just putting it off. And so he didn't get it looked at. And it might have not shown up again, because unless you do a specific test, it might not. Maybe it would have. Maybe it would have shown that his blood pressure was going down. I don't know. It's like you.
Yeah. I wanted to thank you when you were just talking about the day of and getting that phone call. Like, I just had so many similarities with it. Like, I asked the guy who called me, like, is this a joke? I remember doing that. I remember. I forgot what you said, but when you said it reminded me how I remember falling to the ground and thinking it's my turn. Mm-hmm. And having this thought, like, this happens to everyone. And I had the thought because I just had a friend, Wayne Ott, pass away. And I remember falling to the ground like, oh, it's Wayne's family just went through this 2 weeks ago. It's your turn. And there's something that you said that reminded me of that, like that feeling. When you talked about you were glad that you saw him before the morgue. I connected with that because I saw my daughter at the morgue and it was ice cold, and so I related to that. I related to a lot, and I guess I wanted to bring this up because this is a classic Buffalo analogy again, because there's so much darkness and pain that you're talking about, but within it, there's like this connection and feeling of like we're connected in this grief, and you don't feel alone. Mm-hmm. You don't feel crazy.
Some days.
Right, but like when you're sharing that story, I feel I'm like, I have these thoughts too, like this, like, thank you. And I just think, like, thank you. Like, I enjoy it.
I thank you because, like I said, when you're in it, and when I was going through it, and it's like, after the funeral and everyone disappears, and it's like, Lynn is like, oh, this is it. This is life.
This is actually your life now.
Yeah. I was just talking about it today. Like, it literally feels like a grenade went off and my life just like blew up. We had got a condo. We were thinking about retiring. We were like, 2 more years. And it's like 2 more years never came. A grenade went off and my life blew up and people's lives went back to normal. And you're just kind of sitting there like, like friends come over and it's great. But I'm always like, they get to go home to their husband, They get to go home to their husband. And
yeah, so like, you're just over a year, 15 months. It's so fresh. How is and I asked you before, what was your grief? What was your relationship with grief before and after? Like, what is it like after now? It's been 15 months. How would you explain how your grief has evolved and how are you connected to it? And how are you dealing with this?
Day by day, one step at a time, There are days that are still hard to get out of bed. There are days when you're angry. Some days, like a friend of mine was announcing that they were getting married, like got engaged, so they're getting married. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that time. And so there's anger still. Like nothing changes. I still have all the emotions. There's still denial. There are still times I think it's just all a dream. And because he worked out west, even his family, we just think, like, he's just out west. He's coming home soon. Like, he's just on a job. He'll be home soon. And it's unreal. I think we live in what I'm finding out, and I was part of it. So I think we live in a grief illiterate world. And so I've gone back to work and
I'm so glad. I love hearing that. A grief illiterate world. I couldn't agree more. We don't talk about it.
And that's funeral. We don't talk about it.
Funeral, God is good. See you when I'm dead. Yeah. Good. Like, that's it.
Yeah. We don't talk about it. And so people just assume she should be over this by now.
It's been 15 months.
15 months. Like, just find someone else.
She's still upset over Basil?
Like, yeah.
That was 15 months ago.
So, so it's just, I can't be in large settings. At work, if I see people and sometimes they look at you and almost like they're walking and this pity comes over their, like I know, I find that there's a look of genuine concern, like love. And then there's people that just almost talk to you with pity or thing. And it makes it, I literally feel my skin like it's burning and itching and I got to get out of here. Like, so I have anxiety, which I never had before.
Man, this is me. You're explaining me.
If I'm somewhere and I get uncomfortable, I'm like, it's like my skin is just itching and I got to get out. And
so you're not doing good. You're not handling this good.
So it's good days and bad days. So, and then some days I'm fine.
Some days it's like I can conquer the world.
Yeah,
I've been through that. Bring on anything. Let's go. And then the next day you're like, I can't do anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing is sometimes I took a trip away. I needed to just reset, clear my mind. And I thought, I'm good now. Like, I feel better. I'm starting to feel like myself because for the longest time, you don't even feel comfortable in your own body. Like, you're like...
Can't even be in it, yeah.
So I took a trip, and I remember coming back from that trip and thinking, I feel stronger. I feel connected to my body again. I feel like myself. And so then you almost think you're good. And then,
Thursday
you could
hits.
Watch something. You could hear a song. I could just pass just anywhere. Like something happens and it could take me out.
It's so frustrating that you're so out of control, it seems like, with your own thoughts and emotions.
Yeah.
Literally, like you're just do-do-do, and then boom, nope, you're done. And you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's hard to navigate this new, it's like you have these baby legs, you're learning how to walk again.
feel like Bambi.
Sorry, I just need to say this. It's going to be random. But another thing I connected to that you said earlier was the out-of-body thing about the noises you were making. Mm-hmm. I did that too. I'm like, what are these noises? And then the out-of-body is seriously like this ability to like, you're looking at yourself grieving and it's like, it is so weird and sad. Sorry, I just had to say that too.
Yeah. And that's why I was going back to, you're thanking me. No, I thank you because I found, like I said, I came across you on Instagram and I was like, oh, someone who gets it, and I mean, for me, it was like, I lost one person. For you, you lost your family. That's multiple people that you're grieving. And I was just, it almost like, I find myself like, oh, if he could get up and if he could do a podcast and if he could get out there and change people's lives, you got to get up. And it's almost like hearing him in my head saying like, you got to get up and live. You got to get out there. And then I would see you and I'm like, he's out there still doing this. He's out there making a difference. Like get out there and do something. And so I thank you because, you could have just laid down and took an out, sometimes I would sometimes like even talk to God and just be like, God, I'm ready to tap out. Like, I need to tap out.
Get me out of here.
Like, this is hard. But then I would, like, when he passed, I don't, there was something that it's almost like I never felt as close to God I was so mad at God. I mean, I was so mad. I was like, there are people that are pieces of shit walking this earth, and you take him, like, this guy did nothing but help people. So I couldn't fathom that. And, but I just remember, like, when he passed and just in the, when you lay in bed and there's no one there, just kept hearing God saying, be still and know that I am God. Be still, and over, like, while I'm questioning him and going through it. It's just, life humbles you. You learn to surrender to something other than yourself. And yeah, I don't know, just... Yeah.
I like when I first asked you, like, your relationship with grief now, like, how you handling this thing. Your first answer was day to day, hour to hour. I want to talk about that because I feel like everyone says, and I say it too, like, that's tossed around a lot. I think it's so true. When I look at life, like, okay, 50 years left or whatever, or even, like, people always ask, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't think anyone has ever ended up when they've answered that question. Does anyone ever end up no.
No. Did we end up, like, could you have even imagined?
I'm going to be in Canada doing a podcast with Anna about, grief. Good luck with
Shared
that.
grief.
So, like, when you think about the future with so much day-to-day pain, it's like, okay, suicide ideation might seep in sometimes. Like, I can't do this. But day to day, it's doable. It's achievable. And I just think that's so true and such a good answer. And it's said so much that I think people don't really take it to heart. But, like, that's truly one of my answers too is, and some days they're so bad. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get to bed. I'm just like, let's get Blue to sleep, bedtime. Let's just get to bedtime. And it's like 4:00 and you're just taking deep breaths like 5 more hours. Like, you're just literally, that's it. You're just in this battle. And I love your honest answer of, it's so chaotic, it's up and down, because some days, they're good and I can do it. And other days, can't get out of bed. And that's me. I'm 3 years later, and there's plenty of days each week that is hard to get out of bed and find meaning and purpose in anything. I think another thing that helps me is when we were talking about God and the anger with him, and then kind of swinging that back to faith in God. I think one thing that helps with that anger too is I was so mad. Like, how does this happen? And then I podcast, and it's like, I'm not special.
That's where life humbles you.
Like I'm not being picked on. This is life. This is hard for everyone. And I think with grief, there is like this little ego, or maybe not ego, maybe stubbornness of I hurt so bad and no one else knows what it's like to be me, that you kind of get stuck in this pity party. Mm-hmm. And then you eventually realize like, oh, like this is not fair for everyone, actually. And so we should help each other and talk about it instead of not talking about it and being miserable. Yeah. So I like those answers. I thought those were really good. I do want to, how is the relationship, how are the kids since Basil? I do want to touch on that a little bit, and then we'll get into the movies and wrap it up.
Okay. Kids are resilient. They are good. They are, pushing forward. They honor him in their own ways and stuff. My son changed his last name to his last name. He wants to carry on his legacy. He says that, when he has kids, like he'll just remember how Basil was with him. And it's just, it's my son has since moved out, which, after Basil passed away, he was in the process of moving out, and then he was like nervous to leave me. And I know it was hard, but I was just like, I didn't want him to stay to think he had to take care of me. So I wanted to just like, you go out. Inside I was dying inside, but I was just like, no, I don't want this to stop him from living his life. He was looking forward to this, and I want that to continue to happen. My daughter lives out west, actually in one of his houses out west. So just before he passed, he told her to go live there and stuff. So, I mean, he was just always in his purpose. He just, the fact that my daughter's living at his house, that she has a comfortable home there, and is taking care of herself there, is just him who basically didn't leave this earth without helping people. Getting the condo as well with my son moved into it, was we had got it together, and then we thought like, oh, he'll move into it, so it gives him some breathing room. And we were excited about being empty nesters. We're like, yes, we're going to be empty nesters, and no, I'm in an empty nest. So, but the kids are doing good.
Was it hard early on? Like, grief can be handled in so many different ways, and when family members don't grieve in the same way, it can cause a lot of tension and anger. I mean, there's so many emotions around grief. Was that a struggle for your family at all, or is that you guys were pretty smooth sailing in that department?
I mean, for my family, I find that it's just not like I think my family struggled to express. I don't know. Like, my family was there for me, and they've been great. But I know, like, it's almost like they don't have the language to, or, they want to fix it.
It's back
they
to
want to fix it.
You're illiterate
yes.
that you were talking about.
They think you could fix it.
And I think sometimes, too, like, they don't know what to say.
Exactly.
And so what they decide is they don't say anything, which is actually, like, maybe the worst thing you can do. Like, at least say something. Like, he's in a better place. Like, that would piss me off, but that's better than nothing. Like, at least you showed up and said something. But I do think it is so heavy that people, like, they don't know what to say, and then that goes long enough, and then no one's saying anything.
Yeah, and
it gets hard.
I give them grace because I think about myself when I had heard that someone was going through something, and I was like, oh, I didn't I was that person just a few months ago.
She's still hurt, sad about that? Yeah.
No, I wasn't. I didn't say that. Never said that. But where you're just like, I don't know what to say, or it's like uncomfortable. Grief is uncomfortable. Life can get awkward and uncomfortable. But I have to say his family, maybe because they have done this before, and I saw, I knew who my husband was. There was always a joke coming. There was always a punchline to something,
That's great.
And his family, I knew that they were all like lighthearted and good energy, like type of thing. But I never realized how similar all their humor is. It would be when we were going to do the funeral arrangements, and his brother and his mother had come, and his mother got out of the car and said, why are you crying? Did someone die? And I was just like, what?
That is great. That is so good.
And meanwhile, she's like got tears in her eyes too, and we're just like, what? And I like, his family really taught me that you could do grief in a way that, I took a trip to his brother's to Jamaica to bury to put some of his ashes there, and his brothers, I'm crying. I'm like, how do we get through this? And they would just make the most inappropriate joke about him. And I would be like, guys, like, this is heavy. And it was just, good. Honestly, it almost like made me feel like he was there with us, because it's exactly what he would do. Yeah. Like, it's exactly what he would do, because if we entered in a room and you could feel some tension and he was just like, ooh, something's going on here, he would instantly...
Yeah, he's a little laughter.
Like, a joke's coming. He's going to call out
just easing the tension, baby.
Yeah, and he would call it out. Like, he would, like, call it out. Like, what's happening here? Like, this energy and stuff.
So funny.
His family, I have to give them credit, is just really taught me that it doesn't have to be so heavy, that you could move through this with some lightness. You can move through it, you could still joke.
Especially if that's who Basil was, because I love laughing and dark humor. And my wife Courtney and my brother Race, they both love to laugh. Mm-hmm. Especially Race is the most unserious guy you'd ever meet. Like, he's always joking.
Oh, I saw a video that someone talking about your brother about that fight. Uh-huh. Oh, that's just like stuck to my heart. And I just thought, what a warrior.
Yeah, he is. But he was so funny too. Yeah. And that, like, who did someone die? That is so good. So we were doing a questions episode for our podcast, me and Ryan, and we got a question sent in, like, biggest red flag in a woman, in a girl, and I said, don't die. Like, because Courtney, like, that was the only thing. Like, why did you die? And I didn't think Ryan liked it, but yeah, like, that's the type of stuff
things you look for
that
now.
Gets you through it. Like, like, I totally agree with that. Like, laugh or cry sometimes.
Sometimes both.
Yeah, that's what my tattoo artist tells me when I'm getting a really hard tattoo. He's like, laugh or cry, man. I'm like, okay. If I was interviewing Basil, what do you think one of the things he might mention or say, or like, what would he be about? Real quick, can you give us anything off the top of your head? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but.
Oh, man.
What would he tell you or us about grief or life or just anything? Or maybe it's a joke. I don't know.
He would just say, like, go out and live. Just don't get caught up in the little stuff. Just live your life. And he was just, like, so many stories that people had told me. I mean, I knew who he was. I saw, like, countless times I've seen him help people and do stuff for things, but there'd be, some of it, some his friends has shared some stories that I didn't know about, and they would say they were going through the hardest times of their life, either a really bad breakup or just not knowing how to like maneuver through life, like early on, like in his 20s or while they got older. And if he knew someone was struggling, he would just call them and just check up on them. He would say, let's go do something. Let's go out. Let's go have a good time. Let's go out. You need to have a good time. We need to go have some laughs. They'd be at a Raptor game. He loves basketball. He was big.
We'd chat basketball all day then. I love basketball.
He was like a Raptor super fan.
Wait, so he saw the Raptors win the finals, though?
Yeah, and you know, because we flew to San Francisco to go watch one of the games out there, and he's a season tickets holder, so he saw it. And so looking back, sometimes when I see the pictures and looking at those pictures, he would always say, Anna, we saw the Raptors win in our lifetime. We saw them win the championship in our lifetime. So I'm always like, hey, he got to see the Raptors win in his lifetime. So, he would he would say, don't take life serious. Just don't get caught up in the little stuff. And one of the things I've really learned that I know he would say is, don't wait. Don't wait, don't put off joy. Don't wait until we would be like, oh, wait until this and in one more year this, and don't wait. Nothing's promised.
I think watching your twin brother die of that heart attack at 23, 24, that probably helped give him that perspective, I think.
Now I see it so clearly.
Yeah.
Now I could look back at conversations we had, and I would think, does he not care? Why is he not upset about this? And now I'm like, he saw his twin brother die. And although I knew his brother died, I knew he had seen it, I knew what he experienced, I just never felt it. I was never on that other end to fully grasp how it changes you, how it, you move differently. And, now I understand it. And sometimes I think, wow, he should have got this girl. He should have got me now, because he was trying to show me, not to get caught up in that stuff and things that really make no, it's just egos, means nothing. And we get so caught up in it. And I just think sometimes, I was caught up in my own ego, even in our relationship, that I just think, wow, if he had got me now, I just think, I think he deserved it almost. I think, he'd been trying to show me this, almost like our whole relationship. Sometimes when I was a storm. When I'm angry, I'm in a storm. I'm like, don't touch me. Don't, just stay away from me. I need time. I need space. And he would just be like, girl, why are you acting this way? I'm here. And the one thing is, I don't, my parents got divorced early on. It's a bit chaotic childhood. And what I've realized is I don't think I ever felt safe. I don't think I ever felt safe. I was always very much got to do this, do that thing. When things happened to me, I was very reactive. I would try to just, if bad things happen or things came up, I would just sweep them under the rug, keep going. Don't focus on that. Just keep going, keep moving. It was almost a survival mechanism, maybe. And then I met this guy who just made me feel safe. And I thought, since he passed, I don't think I ever felt that way. I don't think anything like my parents, like, I don't think anything ever made me feel the way he made me feel. Like, I just knew with him, I was just safe. Like, I was just protected. No matter what happened, he was there. So yeah, I wish he got this girl. I wish he got, like, I wish I had this perspective. I wish I had this perspective. And
yeah, it's like the grief gives you this new perspective and way to live life that you really love, but it's a trap, because just like you said, I want to be with the person I love most with this new perspective. Well, that's what gave you the, like, exactly. It's so fucked up.
And then sometimes I would say to God, why couldn't it have been someone else so that I could have got it? And then it's just like, are you God? Are you trying to control who should go?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And maybe this is what you needed. And maybe he's completed his purpose here, which I feel like he did. Like, he was just always, like, just how he helped people. I feel like that could only be the reason why he's not here today, is because he did well. And so it's like, you won the video game. You did well. It's just like winning a video game. Yeah. You did good, so you end that game.
You advanced to the next level.
And
yeah, I feel that too. Like, when my family died, I'm like, you guys left without me.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys went on vacation. Like, I'm over here. What are you doing?
Yeah, you're like, what about me?
What about me and Blue over here?
Yeah.
I love it.
But I'm glad that, I'm like, Blue is here for you.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what would happen if Blue wasn't here.
Blue is here for you.
Yeah. I have that too, is I wish Courtney got this version of Mace. Well, some versions. The good parts of this version of Mace. And yeah, the little guilt and shame that comes with that isn't great, but it makes you feel good that you appreciate them. Anna, anything else before we get to the movies? Anything else you want to say?
No.
This is your story. 20 years from now, you can listen to it back, and hopefully you said all the things you wanted to say. So, we good? We ready to move on to movies? Mm-hmm. Okay, top 3 Desert Island style. So 3, 2, 1. 3 movies the rest of your life. Or TV shows.
Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby?
Ricky Bobby, Shake and Bake.
Ricky Booby?
Ricky Booby, yeah.
Just say you like crepes.
I love Will Ferrell.
I love that movie. That's an underrated movie of his. I think that's one of his best.
You ain't first, you're last.
I was probably drunk when I said that. You can be lots of things, Ricky. You can be second. You can be
yeah. Bridesmaids. I could watch that movie over.
Courtney loved Bridesmaids.
I love Bridesmaids. Third pick is hard, but I'm going to go with Crash.
I don't know if I've seen Crash.
It was a movie from a few years ago, but it was all about kind of how we project our racism on people and how we view certain things.
Sounds like a Black Mirror episode or something. This sounds good.
Similar, but it's just how it's all interconnected. So it'll be like, I just a lot of it. Like, I haven't watched it in so long, but I just remember like feeling, it goes into Black people, Asian people, Middle Eastern people, and just common biases that people have. And it shows the person with the bias, and then it shows the perspective from the person who's experiencing the bias. And it's just all in a story that's all interconnected together.
I'll have to check it out, yeah. I haven't seen this movie.
Yeah.
Crash. I'll have to check it out. Little Canadian accent, I just have to say.
Really?
The letter O. You guys use the letter O different. Like, oot, out? About?
No,
it's out. Different, though. Are you guys with me on that? You guys are all Canadian. And then, what was the other one I was catching up on? There were some other words you said, but
I noticed
really like
you say hey.
Hey, yeah.
And so I'm like, that's a Canadian thing.
Hey?
Yeah. No one else says hey. So I was like, oh, he's like Canadian. He says hey.
Well, okay. I watched the movie Fargo, the Coen Brothers movie, and one of my favorite movies ever. And they're from Minnesota. I understand that, not Canada. But the accents in that movie are so thick and so good that I just kind of picked up from that movie. And then coming to Canada, I was hoping like maybe I'll hear some accents, and it hasn't been that like Fargo,
right?
But no, it's there a little bit. I heard it a couple times.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Life's 10%. What happens to you, and 90%. What you're going to do about it.